If you're like me, you probably love your Weber Kettle grill. Have you been looking for a device that can convert your Weber Kettle grill into a fire pit? Well, today I will set a prototype called the KettlePit, and I'm gonna check it out and tell you what I think. Let's dive in. All right, so I have a really exciting product today. It's actually called the KettlePit. And what it does is it converts your typical Weber Kettle grill, your 22-inch Weber Kettle grill, into a fire pit. This entire thing is an enclosure around your Weber Kettle. Looks really elegant. I have a prototype. I was asked to check it out, take it for a test drive, and give the company feedback. Okay, so like I said, I have a prototype. So I'm not gonna be doing an unboxing because the official product is not gonna arrive in the same packaging that you see today. But I am gonna take some time to show you how to install the product, and then we'll talk about some pros and cons and some improvements that I think the manufacturer can do to improve on the product. Okay, so as far as the unboxing is concerned, you're dealing with sheet metal, so be very careful when you're unboxing it. You don't necessarily want to do this without gloves on, but yeah, so just be careful when you're unboxing it. Okay, and again, I have no idea if these instructions are going to be the final instructions or not. It does look like it's just a quick print for an assembly, a prototype, but it looks fairly simple. On the website, it does claim that you should be able to assemble the entire thing in about 10 minutes or so. And it should easily convert to your kettle within a couple of minutes. So that's something I'm gonna be looking for while doing this. And then the only thing that you need is a Phillips screwdriver. So there is one thing that I was kind of afraid of, and it's actually the step right here, step number 5. Remove the legs from the Weber grill, ensuring to safely store the clips. Step number 6, install the included shorter legs into the grill, figure C. For those of you that own Weber Kettle grills, you'll know that the legs are a pain in the ass to install initially and to install and remove because of the manufacturing tolerances. You know, Weber doesn't necessarily have the best tolerances for this portion of the grill, and that's fine, that's understandable, they're mass produced. So I'm not looking forward to removing the legs or messing with the legs in any way, but let's see how it goes. It's right around here that I realized I made a big mistake and had the top and bottom panels switched upside down. The top panel should be the panel with the ridge, not flush, and the bottom panel should be flush and not have a ridge. I had them upside down here, so I had to reassemble the entire thing. It's really important that you have the panels on correctly, because when you go to assemble them around the grill, they will not be flush with the grill, and that's a clear sign that you have them on backwards. Or in my case, the panels that are painted inside and out are the top panels. What you see here is the correct panel. The top has the ridge and the bottom is flush. And when I went to assemble the units onto the grill, everything fit nicely. Okay, so let's talk about this a little bit more. I just got done with the installation. I gotta stress, once again, make sure you guys wear some gloves. And then I really highly recommend you use 2 people to help you do this. And that kind of brings me to the next point that I wanna make. Advertised, I think they said it's something like 10 minutes or so to assemble the actual unit. but swapping out to your kettle grill was supposed to be like minutes or something like that. That wasn't necessarily the case for me. I found that actually assembling the fire pit took me roughly 30, 35 minutes. Keep in mind, I'm also filming. I don't have anyone to help me today. It's the weekend, so I'm doing all the filming myself. And then I made a huge critical mistake. I didn't read the instructions correctly. I had it backwards on some of the panels, so I had to redo it. Other than that, the assembly is pretty straightforward. It's not too bad. And actually, when you get one side on already, and you've kind of, formed it and bent it into place, the other side, the opposite side, is really easy to do. So initially, it's kind of hard to bend it in place, but once you get the hang of it, it's fine. And then the screws at the very edges are the hardest to put in. I highly recommend you start the screws in the holes and then just align them and then screw them in once they're aligned. That's probably the easiest way to do it. I did it myself, but I think if you have someone helping you, it should be a piece of cake. But for most of you out there, and if this is your first time doing this, it's probably gonna be like 20 to 30 minutes. Okay, now let's talk about how easy it is to switch over your kettle grill. It's not necessarily that quick or easy. I was really worried about the legs. I remember with this kettle grill, the legs were a pain to put in, the holes were tight and so forth. Taking out the legs was a pain to do. And I also remember that you had to flip the grill upside down when you initially installed the legs, but you can't do that if you're always using your grill, right? There's ash in there and so forth, and you don't want to mess up your yard. So it was really hard to remove the legs when it was upright. I wish the company would have figured out a way to do this with the legs attached. And I understand they would have probably had to taper out the assembly or the panels, and they would have had to extend it, which means more cost and so forth. But yeah, that is kind of difficult to do. Okay, now let's talk about some of the pros and cons. I know that this is just a prototype, so I'm gonna keep that in mind, but I'm actually kind of impressed with it. A lot of thought went into the design, and I think it's a smart design. It kind of reminds me of like a drum set, right? The sheet metal's fine. I don't feel like it's too thin. I don't feel like it's too thick. It's a nice balance of weight and performance. But there are some cons or areas to improve. But that's the good thing about this product, the company, and the owner. The owner really wanted some feedback. He wanted some real world examples of areas to improve on. I would really like to see different color options. I have the copper kettle grill. I love this color. I love this kettle grill. And it'd be cool to see like a copper finish that would go along with the grill. I also think that the instructions need to be kind of upgraded. But again, this is a prototype, so maybe the instructions will be a little bit more picture friendly. Maybe the company can do like an instructional video. The biggest con that I can think of is having to disassemble the legs. Basically, half of my kettle was disassembled and the legs had to be taken off. And it wasn't easy, but the legs that were included, those shorter legs, just slid right in there. They're actually better tolerance than the kettle legs. And then once it's put together, you really can't move it. So you have to figure out where you want it and just leave it there. And you're basically stuck. I mean, if I try to move this around right now, it flexes way too much. It's too heavy. It's just not worth picking up and moving around. I really wish they would have somehow built around the kettle legs so you can actually wheel it around and so forth. That brings me to my next con. Once it's assembled, it's assembled. You can't access the ashtray, you can't choke out the fire in any way. You can put the lid on and choke it out that way, but if you had an emergency, for example, the kettle grill, if you have a grease fire, you close your vents, you put the lid back on, it's done, you're good. The fire's out. I'm not sure how that's gonna work. So the one-touch cleaning system is inaccessible. I wish they would have kind of poked a hole, maybe added an extension rod so you can still access those features, clean out the ash and so forth. I think in general, it's a good idea to keep a fire extinguisher handy anytime there's a fire. You never know what's gonna happen. So I think you're fine. I'm gonna trust the designer. We're gonna test it out later, but it's a good idea to always have a fire extinguisher or baking soda. The other thing about this design is your kettle grill should be clean. I mean, if you think about it, if you cook something really greasy like lamb or so forth, you could ignite a grease fire. So I think you kind of need to prepare if you're gonna swap over and think about all those things. Again, we'll test it out later. And then you wanna put it on even pavement. I have it on my lawn right now. I was hoping I can use it on the lawn, but I'm looking at it, it's kind of warped. I guess right now I'm kind of thinking, who's this intended for? I'm not sure. Or would you be better off just buying a dedicated pit? It's the first time I'm using it, and it's really my first impression of the entire product and how it works together. I think I gotta use it more and more to kind of come to a conclusion. Got to think about it a little bit more. There's a couple of things that I want to highlight that the company mentioned in an email. These are key events to look out for. Let's talk about timing. Everything that you need to know is on KettlePit.com. Go there, you'll find all the information, and there is going to be an early access VIP like discounted price. And basically May 25th is when you can pre-order it and get that early bird discount. If you pre-order it, if you get the early bird VIP special, it's only $119. If you don't get the early pricing, it's gonna retail at $179. So that's a significant discount if you think about it. So this is a pre-production model. They need some time, obviously, to fulfill their shipments. They are looking to ship out the actual product sometime in July, mid-July. So look for that. But again, you can go on their website for all the details. First things first, the finish. It is not gonna be painted. It's gonna be a matte finish. It's gonna be powder coated. So significant upgrade in my opinion. Let's talk about those little legs. They're gonna be polished. They're not gonna be so rough around the edges. And they're also gonna have plastic stoppers at the end. They're also gonna include small feet that will raise the kettle pit 1/4 of an inch off the ground. Now they're also gonna update, obviously, the packaging. I didn't do an unboxing because this is a prototype. I knew that they were gonna package it differently. When you actually get the product, it's gonna include some honeycombs in there to protect the product even further. But to be fair, the prototype was packaged really well. So now that we've covered all that, today's kind of a sunny but cloudy day here in California. Later tonight, the temperatures are gonna be dropping a bit. I just ordered some wood and we're gonna give this thing a test run. This was an absolute joy to use, and because you're using a Weber Kettle grill, which can easily withstand temperatures of up to like 1,000 degrees, you really have nothing to worry about, and this gives a really nice aesthetic appeal to the Weber Kettle grill. My family enjoyed roasting some s'mores and having a great time with this fire pit, but when they went inside, it was time for me to have some fun. I think this is a great product, and it's doing exactly what it's designed to do, which is to turn your kettle grill into a fire pit. Thanks for watching.